Imagine for a second for me, you are visiting New York City for work. You are walking towards the New York Hilton Midtown Hotel to attend an investors meeting. Suddenly, you open your eyes, surrounded by darkness, weeping, gnashing of teeth, suffering, death, fire, and torment. You are the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, and you have just found yourself spontaneously transported to the depths of hell. Why on earth, you exclaim? What have I done to deserve such treatment? Could it possibly be that I played a significant role in the perpetuation of a system that leads to the death of tens of thousands of Americans yearly? Surely not. And you would be right. For the reason that you are in hell is not because of your treatment of your neighbor, but actually because right before you left to attend your investors meeting, you drank yourself a nice glass of some of the best water in the US, New York tap water, and you're Jewish. Now, that's the end of the bit here. Okay, that's the end of the bit. Yes, all right. There's nothing wrong with being Jewish, and being Jewish is not what condemned this man to hell. Hypothetical. This is all hypothetical, okay? I don't know his religion. I don't know if he's Jewish, but for the bit, he's Jewish, okay? Fun fact about New York tap water that I just learned recently. Drink up New York City and meet the tiny crustaceans, not kosher, in your tap water. Now, this is from a 2010 news article that I just read, where a Reddit user uploaded photos of what they found in a microscope in their water. Now, this hits a couple of points, okay? That one, Reddit user, okay? Two, though, they found them through a microscope, all right? And under Judaism, for something to be kosher, you have to be able to see it from the naked eye. A lot of the foods that you consume, like under kosher rules, are generally really easy to see at first glance, but a lot of the stuff that's not kosher, like you in general, just like as you exist, eat tons of like tiny little bug-like creatures or like little bacterias, which if they were large enough to see, wouldn't be kosher, but it just makes no sense to have that be a rule, because you're not going to know if anything is safe to eat. And generally you like can't remove these things. And so, they're just like nothing is going to be kosher to eat. But this is from a 2010 article. Actually, New York water has been known to not be kosher for like quite a while now. Here's a New York Times article from back in 2004. And basically the way the story goes, and I'm going to start from here. For generations, the most pious Jews, even revered rabbis like Joseph B. I'm not going to pronounce that, and Moses Feinstein drank unfiltered New York water with no evident concern. But 6 months ago, a group of Brooklyn rabbis were examining some lettuce imported from Israel that was supposed to be bug-free, but which appeared to have insects on its leaves. And then after an investigation, they determined that the bugs had arrived after the lettuce was washed in New York City water, and said that in the right light, they could see the telltale specks with their own eyes. And then moving on from here, they took it to the water treatment plant, they had a conversation there, and then the authority that decides if something is kosher or not decided that all New York water is not kosher, because all the water has these little bugs in it. Now here's some pictures of what copepods look like. It's these little guys, and you might say like, dang, these look so tiny. These look so small. And you might also be curious as to what they look like. Same as I was. I was curious as to what these things looked like. This is the best I could find in the New York water.
Show today the copepods in the water. You all know that New York has copepods in the water. And the truth is that if one tries to find it by himself, he can look inside the glass of water. He's just not going to find it.
Yes, this is the highest quality I can find. Here, look, let's take a look. This was recorded in 360p. We're trying to see little specks in the water, okay? There's nothing I can do about it. 360p, tiny little specks that are barely viewable to the human eye. We'll get there. So basically, the water's not like full of copepods. There's a rather significant chance that whenever you drink water, you're not going to see them, and you won't even notice a little one. So, in order to make this work, what he did here was he ran the water through this filter right here, and then he took that filter off, flip it over, and then dabbed it in this black dish so that the copepods would fall out of it. And since the dish is black and the copepods are white, they'll be a lot easier to see on the background.
We have few things here. You take a close look. Here's one right here. You can clearly see it with the eyes.
Yeah, see it? Do you clearly see it? I'm gonna zoom in on it for you. It looks like a tiny little grain of rice, a little speck right there. It is there. It is pretty clearly there, and I can definitely understand you not noticing that in a glass of water.
Here's a second one right here. Here's a third one right here. Clearly see those. Here's a fourth one. Here's a fifth one. Here's a sixth one. And they keep on going, but those are pretty nice, big and nice. You can see it with the eyes. The nice size. And we're now going to check to see
So yeah, pretty clearly not kosher and pretty readily available. And then skip ahead a little bit. He sticks in the microscope, so you'll be able to see it a little bit. That little guy in there. There he is. There's your little buddy down there, little copepod. That's what's in the New York water. Now I'm not here to, like, you know, scare anyone or anything. Anyone who lives in New York or really any other cities that don't filter out water, because copepods are, like, they're everywhere. They're rather common, and the rule generally is any city that exceeds the federal standards for, like, water clarity, you technically don't have to filter it because it's good enough to go. Like, you know, it's safe to drink. All filtering it really does is remove some other things that aren't really harmful and aren't calculated into the standards, like copepods, for example. The spokesman for the New York City Department of Environmental Protection said that copepods pose no risk to human health, and it's not something that's regulated because there's no harmful effects to them. So it's really not something that you need to worry about. It's just something that's in the water. And even further past that, like, even if it is in the water and it's like, ooh, scary, yucky, like, New York is still well known for having some of the best water in the country. And it's often claimed that New York's great water leads heavily into how good the pizza and the bagels end up being. I can't lend any credence to these claims, because that, frankly, to me sounds a little bit ridiculous that the water would lend to that flavor so much. But, I mean, people are saying it. People are saying this stuff. And the water in New York is treated with chlorine, fluoride, orthophosphate, sodium hydroxide, a bunch of stuff to disinfect the water and clean it, and, you know, all the good stuff, right? These things don't kill the copepods. In fact, one of the reasons why they are visible to the human eye is because of the use of chlorine in the water. It actually changes their color to make them a little bit more visible. Normally, copepods are a little bit clear, but after chlorination, they do get foggier, which makes them easier to see. Still, regardless, though, if you were to look close enough without the chlorination, you probably would still be able to see them. Another thing that's significant of note, I started this whole video by talking about a Jewish person who got sent to hell for breaking kosher, or however you would say that, eating non-kosher food. That's actually not what would happen. You know, it's not as big a deal. The Torah does not specify a punishment for consuming other non-kosher items. Like, you're not going to be condemned to hell for just eating, like, a shrimp. Like, the same way under Islam, you don't immediately get condemned to hell for eating pork. In both religions, it's generally considered, you know, bad, you know, and in some religions it might be a little bit worse to do one the other, but you're still, like, you're not going straight to hell for eating pork, or in this instance, shrimp. Or crustaceans. I mean, we're talking about crustaceans. Copepods are crustaceans. If you knowingly do it without regard for a very long time, then it can be a little bit more of an issue. But if you repent after you do it, generally consider it okay. I mean, I'm not, you know, the spokesperson on the way this stuff works. I'm not Jewish. I'm not Islam. But from what I've read, that's how it turns out. So all in all, it's really not that big a deal. But just to note, the water in New York is not kosher. Anyways, bye.